All right, so here I have a Freddy from Finance and Freddy Security Breach model, and as you can see right here, of course, I have the model, all the textures, and all that stuff. So I'll be honest with you, I do not remember where exactly I got this model, but I'll leave down some links in the description from the models, or in this case, the links that I got the model from, and hopefully that you can find actually this model. So, but anyway, so let's pretend that you have this model right here, right? So let's give a quick rundown. So once I got this model, sometimes people, based on like what they worked on and all that stuff, they might have something, they might have leaving all of this, all of this workspace, open and all that stuff. So let's say, again, let's pretend that you have this file and we want to clear some things up. So let's do this. So what you can do is right click and make sure that you're going up here in a little bit on that black space right there. Right click and then you close area, so that way now your navigation will be, or your space, and that will be even more clear. So now here's one thing to mention. So I don't right now see the bones of Freddy, so that way you can actually animate. So if for any case that the user in the first place hit them for some reason, you can always just go an animation and hopefully that you can find them right here. If not, try when you go back to layouts, you see this right here where it says Rick Landmark Freddy. So you come down over here and it says this right here where it says the object data properties, that means it's on the bones. So, and if you see this little guy right here, that means actually the bones are shown, but right now they're not shown. And I'll be honest with you, right now I do not know like what exactly why it is. So like we can just go back here to animation and actually start, let's say, animating something. So again, so what we have right now, of course, is the rig. The rig means all of these bones, and the model, which includes, all this, the shapes and all that stuff, etc. So one of the things that I would say to actually get started, and let me go ahead and close this area. I don't need that anymore. So right over here is the hierarchy. All the stuff that you need is like some sort of to organize yourself. Collection. Let's just say Freddy and lights. So these almost like look like boxes is just like I said, just another way to actually to organize your stuff. Any some sort of like items that you might need. Like for example, if I press, oh, and by the way, to rename this, you can actually just, if you right click, I believe there was a way to actually, if not, let's see if I can double click it. Yeah, you can double click it. If not, just press hotkey F2 on your keyboard. And by the way, I'm using, of course, Windows. I don't actually know for Mac users, so apologies for that. So for, let's say, if I want to rename this, so let's say, I don't know, other stuff, right? So what I actually want to do is, let's say, oh, and one thing to mention, if you're on post mode right here, post mode is when actually you're trying to actually, just post your character, post Freddy, somewhere like, like this, or like this, even though that wasn't good, or like this, somewhere around right there. So when you're trying to add stuff and we're like, let me go back here, adding, mesh, playing cube on all of this stuff, you want to make sure that you go into object mode. So if you press or if you select one of the bones, that will instantly go to post mode. But if you go click on the model itself, it will actually automatically go to object mode. Now here's another thing. By default, right here, by default, Blender right now it's unticked. By default, this will be lock object modes. And what does this do? It means that if I am trying to actually, edit the model or like select, let's say, just like the hand, but not the bone, which is this one. It was, I can see why. Okay. So, yeah. So if I'm trying to select the model, or let's say, this yellow thing, at the same time, I can't because I have to exit out from post mode to object mode. Then I can actually select, this and where, select Freddy. So, but a faster way to do it is either you can do one of these two things. So, first off, if you're on, let's say you're on post mode, right? So right now I'm using the hotkey, which is Control Tab, to actually move myself faster from post mode to object mode and actually select the whole mesh itself. Or what you can do, what I just did earlier, just untick lock object modes. So now the mesh is selected. If I select one of the bones, and again, faster way, instead of hovering your mouse and then click on post mode, what you can do is click on Control Tab to actually select or remove from post mode to object mode. So you can practice that. So if you don't want this ticked or unticked, whatever, so if you're right now on post mode, Control Tab to exit from post mode, go to object mode easily, or again, press Control Tab to go to post mode. So there's actually another option, which is edit mode, and I'll cover it on another video. Edit mode is really about moving or editing bones, and where because this by default, the edit mode will actually replace, add, or even move any bones that you have in the first place. It will actually affect for both object mode and pose mode. So, just a quick example. So, if I, oh, and by the way, to actually go to exit, no, sorry, enter and exit edit mode, regardless of where you are, both object mode or pose mode, if you press only tab, it'll go to edit mode. You see? Edit mode, pose mode, edit mode, pose mode. But it will go back to where you actually had it in the first place. So if object mode, if I press tab again, it'll go to edit mode, and if I press object mode, press tab again, it'll go back to object mode. So whatever you had in the first place, you know, it'll go back to that. So go back to edit mode. So let's say if I want these two, and to select one or more two or more objects at the same time, you press, of course, you click on the first object, then shift click, and then shift click others to actually move at the same time. So again, just like last time, Z or X at this time, move it right here. And if I go back to, see, it will now affect for both object mode and pose mode. So whenever I had these two greens right here were over here in this shoulder, or on this top shoulder where he has. So it looks like some sort of armor that they put into him. But whatever, that's not the case of this video. Anyways, so these two were over here. So it will always affect for both pose mode and object mode the bones that you just moved in edit mode. Now it'll be affected. So let's say, for example, if you don't want those bones anymore to be placed right here. So if I go back to open this, matter of fact, this sidebar right here, all you have to do is press N on your keyboard, or you can see that mini like arrow. Just make sure to just do this, and then once it's like at your comfort zone to actually see all of this, that is one way to edit that is one way to actually edit Freddy out. So there's another thing that will actually tell you more about this. So let's go over here, this in the viewport shading, or all of this, matter of fact, I'm sorry, all of this stuff's right here. You're actually going to use this, of course, but honestly, this right here where it says view wireframe, that's like back in the old days, like I don't know, maybe perhaps some sort of like PS1 type of style, I don't know, like wireframe. I mean, I have seen like some video games that have like those, I guess, cheats and not some kind of bonus things. But anyways, this is just another way to see your character like some sort of like X-ray, even though they actually can do this at the same time. But anyway, so solid view. It's just solid without no colors, just some sort of like statue or clay. And then we also have material preview, which of course it also has all these colors, including textures. And matter of fact, let me close this area. To see the materials, you go over here to this clock item, and then shader editor. I can't find it right now. So an easier way to actually find the materials is, of course, once you select the mesh, not the rig, the mesh, and click on this one, or just click on the mesh itself, Control F, and then just anything that you have or that appears with you, just click on it, and you might have actually to zoom in just in case. And of course, it will show the material preview will show everything instead of being some sort of like, let's just call it some sort of like, I see it, or I see it as some sort of like clay. Now the render, which actually that's completely different and even more cool, is actually how is it gonna be. And if I press, what is it, 0, right? No. Enter. 1 second. Do I have? Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So to actually render, let's say if we want to actually render this image of Freddy and put it like some sort of like our a wallpaper, you actually need to have a camera and actually make it to work. So here's one of the things that you should do. Make sure that you're in object mode. Shift A, or you can just go hover over here. But honestly, if I were you, I would use the hotkeys, because honestly, when it comes to using a computer, it's about working smarter or working less, not harder. Work smart, not harder, and work, just a way to actually make your life more easier or your project more easier. But anyways, Shift A and then go here to camera. A new camera will be placed. So once that's done, press 0 on the number pad key, and then you'll now be controlling the camera. So there we go. So let's say we have Freddy right here, or let's say somewhere. Matter of fact, now that I'm using the camera, let me show you a little quick things about how to use and render a camera. So let's say I'm using, matter of fact, we're just gonna render this image as how it is versus the other one that I'm gonna show you. So to render an image, once the camera is selected or used, once you add the camera, press 0 on the number pad key. Sorry about that. And then press F12. And see, we have there Freddy. So as you can see right here, some sort of like, pixely, blurry, and all that stuff, not very good. But of course, sometimes you don't want, a lot of resolution in your image or in your render in this case, because it will take a lot of space. So let's say if you want that image, you can either press image and go to save, or just press Alt S, and then a file explorer, but it's gonna open from Blender. You're actually gonna save it, and where if just go out there and just save some images and all that stuff, or download the file. It's just gonna be a same thing as File Explorer. So let's exit out of this. So now we actually want to make it better. So let's talk about quality, sampling, resolution, of course, and some other things I would like to tell you. So if you hover over here and right here in the render properties, the render properties is what you're gonna see it as in the camera. So the render right now, so sampling means in like how good the quality is, the image in terms of sampling. What it means by sampling, instead of looking some sort of like pixelated stuff, and where let's say the difference between, let's say, a PS1 quality model versus almost like a PS2 quality model, and then versus right here the resolution is just when you get to see let's say a PlayStation 2 video game and now they remaster it, or same thing as PlayStation 3 and now they remaster it. So that's how resolution works. But anyways, let me go by order. So I'll be honest with you, a good render, a good number for render, you actually want to like target this render, is what you're going to see it in the final once you press F12. The viewport is what you're going to see it like right here, not rendering, right? So if I go over here in 0, it might be actually kind of affected a little bit. If not, if you don't get to see it, don't worry, you'll be to see it in render. So ambient occlusion is like all this, bloom and all that stuff, and screen space reflections. It's almost the same thing as you go, once you game. So ambient occlusion. I'm sorry, I can't sometimes say words. I'm sorry. It's like if you emit some light or put some, like, let's say there's like a sun right there, and you're able to see shadows or other stuff. But even more better, I'm trying to actually learn about more ambient occlusions, how it is, but actually it will affect it. Bloom is like, of course, it's at the same time adding the right lights to whatever you put it into your viewport, but at the same time, bloom is going to affect more for materials that you have for an emissive light. So not these normal guys. If it does like very little, but I'll be honest with you, some sort of like light that gives an emissive. And screen space reflections, let's just say in terms of short words, is, well, NVIDIA RTX, just ray tracing. Now, speaking of screen space reflections, I'm not sure how Blender works for AMD. Anyone out there using an AMD GPU? Hopefully by now on 2025, Blender's now friendly with screen space reflections, but I'm using an NVIDIA GPU. But if you have an NVIDIA GPU, or regardless an AMD GPU, and if it supports it, you want to click on this one, and by default it will be half res trace. If you want a better quality, just click on refraction and then turn on the trace precision, and where how exactly the ray tracing is going to be affecting. Sorry about that. Shadows over here is, of course, how you want your shadows to be, instead of some sort of pixelated, or exactly as how it looks like a person, some sort of like just a circle. And where have you seen in those video games, and where, oh, there's a guy standing here and it's just a circle? No, you want something better, just cube size, I'm sorry. I think by default it will be either 1024 or 512. We want to keep it at 1024 for the highest, and 512 for for just in case. Simplify a recover for that. But just a quick rundown. That's for more enabling more FPS. And colors management, actually I like this, because here's it's gonna be interpreted. So if you want something that is like a higher contrast, you see right here, what is it? View transformed filmic. You want to set it up as filmic instead of raw or anything else, and then look. So right now we have none. So let's put it onto very low contrast. Get to see like some sort of blurry and all that stuff. It's because, of course, very low contrast, medium low contrast, and so on. Sometimes I like to put it on high or very high to actually see those colors like even more vivid for me. So, but if you don't want any, I mean, it's still Freddy's still vivid, but I'll be honest with you, like it's even more better with the very high contrast. It feels like it even feels good. I'll be honest with you, like it's better. Anyways, so now we have covered that up. Now, if we go to output properties, so resolution right here is 1920 1080. So you want to have the resolution that you want, or in this case, that is of course based on what you want, or what your whole PC or laptop, whatever the case might be, can support. So I think this will be always by default 100%. And I'm sorry, 1920 1080 and 100%. But instead of going to 2K, or 4K, I'll be honest with you, I'd rather stick to this as what it is by default. Or what you can do, instead of going 2K, let's call it 1080p 1.5 or version 1.2, whatever you want. So if you click on the percentage, or what the blue line is, click on it and then type in 200. That will actually be double 1080p, almost hitting like 2K or even better. 2K with, if I'm not mistaken, with less file size. If it's the same or even better, or I'm sorry, bigger file size than 2K, then you can just mess around with it. If you don't want too much 1080, 50% of what 1080 is, or 150, which is 1.5 times 1080, etc. Frame rates, of course, is what you want to have for 24 or 24, 25, etc. Frame start is actually when you're going to start by your animation, which is right here, which is 1, and ending at 250. The output, that's another story that I will actually cover with. So just a little heads up. Color, by default, I think also is going to be RGBA. Quick heads up, the A on the RGB means it's alpha. So when you render an image, right? Let's say if you render an image, and then it's going to be transparent. If you want to modify the image on the background or anything like that, you want to set this up as RGBA instead of RGB. But I'll be honest with you, RGB is fine. Color depth, it'll be at 8. If you want something more precise, go to 16. File compression is like, let's say, once you have a file size, right, and you have a 4K, if you turn this up from 15 to, let's say, 50, it's going to compress that file and make it that file size even more short, or even less bigger from that size originally. So like I said, you can leave this at 1080p, 150%, 100 or 200, and you can also miss anything with this and just leave it as how it is. If not, a good compression rate, it'll be either 25, if not 30. Here's another thing. If you get to see right here at the bottom, post processing, that means whenever it's rendering an image, matter of fact, this should only be for both, for both rendering an image and animation. You want to untick this sequencer, because the sequencer in Blender, treat it as something like the video sequence editor that has in Blender. I think that's one of the like softwares that you other YouTubers use, and sort of like some sort of like DaVinci Resolve, and where when you use I think it's called like a streaming software or anything like that, the one that I'm using. And it's just another way to actually animate your videos and all that stuff, but I'll get to that in another video. So you want to actually untick the sequencer, go to composing. Once you animated at video and have all those frames, you actually want to use the sequencer, but again, that's another topic. And pretty much all of this, you can mess around with it. I'll upload another video to actually give it more a heads up. So thank you for watching.